Hey guys, so I thought I'd bring another rogue analysis video where I look at what rogue decks the top ranked players on Dueling Book are playing using data available from ygeoscope.com. So if you follow my channel, you may have seen my recent tier list by the data video where it looks something like this. Now in terms of which decks that will not be considered for this video, there will be a slight modification from this list. So basically you have Branded Despia, Fluanderies, Outlich, Sword Soul, Dragonlink, Prank Kids, Trapagade, and any kind of Brave DPE pile that won't be included. Now while Dogmatica Invoked, Phantom Knight, and Drytron were identified as rogue decks in the tier list by the data video, I think these decks are still technically in the tier 2 area, so I decided not to consider them as rogue decks for this video. Of course that line between tier 2 and rogue is murky and it's not perfect, but that's what I'll be going with. So for May, among the top 100 ranked players on Dueling Book, there were a total of 253 matches that involved their top players using a rogue deck, so this means that there weren't many top ranked players running rogue decks this time around. Now the most played rogue deck was at Ignister, which I'm not sure if maybe a rival at Ignister is really hard to out for some top decks like Branded Despia, but it's certainly popular right now. We have Infernal Knight back as one of the top rogue decks on Dueling Book ranked, as well as Mech, as these two decks are piloted by some of the most consistently high ranked players in every format. We also have Dinosaur here, and this was not the traditional going second kind of type, but mostly going for scrap dinos, and there were a few matches that involved some form of 10-ye dino list. Then we had some Dragon Maid Dragoonity deck, really cool to see. I know there was some initial hype with Dragoonity back when it got its recent wave of support, especially considering that Dragonlink was tier 1 at the time and the cards went well together. The Dragoonity Legion structure deck was certainly a fan favorite among many players, so cool to see that the deck can be competitive in today's game. Obviously a pretty heavy combo deck, but anything involving dragons will usually be that way. Then we have Infinitrack Machina, or Earth Machines, however you want to call it, which I have been noticing has been popular lately. This is another deck based on an old structure deck in Machina Mayhem and later Mechanized Madness, which offers really strong beaters for a lot of damage, but has a lot of control aspects to it with the kind of traps that they can run. Then we have of course ABC, piloted by the infamous Pier 555, who will always do well with this deck regardless of the format. Not sure how popular the Brave stuff is in this deck, but ABC Dragon Buster is pretty neat and this deck floats like crazy. After that we have Salamangreat, which also seems like it utilizes the Brave engine as well, although not sure how common that is. DPE seems like a pretty popular choice in this deck too, and this deck is really consistent and grindy with its back row that can pop or negate, and the Salamangreat monsters are quite recursive as well. Being Cybers means some easy OTK strategies are available like Update Jammer and Access Code Talker. Then we had some Mystic Mind Burn, a strategy that I won't go over because it's just pure evil. And lastly, we had one match that involves Teller Knight DPE as well as Plunder Patrol Brave. Now compare this to the last time I did the rogue analysis a couple of months ago in March. We actually had some new rogue decks making it in like Evil Twins and Pure Heroes, but sadly I guess these decks weren't so popular this month. The remaining decks are sorta similar, and at the time Dogmatica Invoke was considered as rogue because it was before the branded stuff came out and it wasn't really doing so well. Now for May, our top 100 ranked players running a rogue deck won 64% of the matches, and most of these rogue options were of the combo playstyle. I also categorize the dinos as combos since they were more of a going first build a board type and not the going second beatdown strategy that we were accustomed to when they were tier 1 earlier in the pandemic. As for mid-range, the most classic example is something like Salamangreat, but I decided to also categorize something like Machina Infinitrack here because while they have a lot of control elements, it's not really a back row focused deck either, so I thought maybe I'd put it here. The only control strategy for this month was Mystic Mind Burn. So let's cover a few of the most played rogue decks in more detail, starting with at Ignister. The 4 players ranked in the top 100 that played Mech won 65% of the matches, and this month had a really high win percentage when they won the die roll at 83%, but with a pretty miserable 46% when they lost the die roll. Going first, especially game 1, setting up a rival at Ignister with at least 4000 attack can be an easy win since it's not affected by anything, and for some decks their only out to this card would be to side in Kaijus or hope they draw several hand traps. Among all players, this deck has risen in popularity lately and was the 13th most played deck in the last 7 days with a really strong 60% win percentage as well. Maybe a deck to watch out for. Next we have a former tier 1 deck in Infernal Knights, and the 2 players in the top 100 won 60% of their matches with a blistering 82% when they won the die roll versus a pretty bad 33% if they lost the die roll, although we're dealing with really small sample sizes here so don't inference too much out of this. Of course, the deck is going to be way better when it gets to go first, since it's still a hand rip kind of deck, and while some hand traps can be played in the deck, I believe many players opt to not run much in this deck and just try to focus on what it's good at. Among all players, not the most popular deck at 27th, but they did still win at a pretty high clip at 58%. As always, we then have Mech, which was piloted by 2 different players in the top 100, and they won a hot 77% of their matches. Their match win percentage was strong whether they won the die roll or not, but again, dealing with small sample sizes here, although I'm certainly not underestimating them because they just always do well with this deck each format. Among all players, not the most played deck either, and their win percentage was pretty low at 48%. Maybe this large discrepancy shows that the deck needs a really strong pilot to do well, but at least we know the potential is there for this deck. Now Mech is slated to have a new card in Power of the Elements, which who knows, maybe we'll put them in tier 1 discussion, so will be a deck to watch out for come August. Although keep in mind that Power of the Elements is also when Spike comes out, so it's going to be a hectic format off the bat. Then we have Dinosaur, and as mentioned earlier, these were the going first combo type of dinosaurs based on 2 different players. Now in the small sample size that we had, they did do well and won 75% of the matches, with a pretty crazy 85% win percentage when they won the die roll versus a still pretty good 64% when they lost the die roll. Now back when dinos were a going second strategy, they didn't really care about the die roll, but now it does matter a bit, at least for these going first variants. Among all players, it was the 15th most played deck in the last 7 days, which isn't bad, but considering that it is a fan favorite deck, and at one point it was the most played deck online by far, sad to see it drop quite a bit. The deck won 50% of the matches as well among all players. I think the Dino Smasher's Furry Structure deck is one of the best to ever be printed, and if you have the Dino cards, maybe best to hold on to them, as I'm sure this deck may come back to meta contention at some point. Most of all, it's a fun deck to play, and Ultimate Conductor Tyranno will always be one of the best boss monsters to bring out. Now I'm not going to cover win percentages of Dragoonity or Machina Infinitrack here because all of those matches were contributed by just one player each, and I only like to show the stats if the deck was run by multiple players, so maybe next time the decks will have more representation. Alright guys, so that was it for this month's rogue analysis. Hope you found that helpful. While the ban list has not come out at the time of recording this video, usually rogue options are safe from the list, so the decks I listed here are probably good for you to pursue even now. As always, a big thanks to my patrons, Eileen Dice Queen, Bolt Spider, Cybernetic, Brandon Jern, Barrelord, Spooky Boogie, and Gridora. Thanks for your continued support, and if you want to join the Databyte gang, my Patreon link is down below. Take care guys.